This is Fraud to Fearless.
Friends, you are made for more purpose, more confidence, more impact. Because when you live fearless, you inspire others to do the same.
Let's go! Hayden, I have a proposal for this next mini-series.
Okay.
You ready to hear this?
I'm all ears.
Okay. I think we need to do a deep dive on leadership.
Okay. We haven't really talked much about leadership. We've had a whole bunch of leaders on the show and indirectly talked about it, but I love it.
Yeah, I think leadership, how many books are there on leadership? How many inspiring speeches are there on leadership? And how much does it impact our life? But it's something that I'm right in the middle of right now with things that are growing in my business. And so I've been just trying to digest all of the things. Like, how do I become the best leader that I can be? How fear has crept into that, imposter syndrome. So I feel like for this episode, we should do a deep dive on what does it actually mean to be a leader? And I'm really curious how our perspectives differ or maybe are the same.
Yeah. I imagine we're going to have pretty, similar, but I imagine we're going to have pretty different answers and different stories of what leadership means. I also think, Brooke, one thing that I've been thinking about is, and this topic really applies to our mission statement, right? Imposter to empowered in work, life, and relationships. My view is there are people who would classify themselves as a leader just through and through. They're probably the achiever types in the personality test, like me and you, where we would be very comfortable in multiple areas of our lives saying we're a leader. And if we're in unnatural places where we don't necessarily have a title in life, like maybe church for you or in a friend group, if there isn't a natural leader, I imagine you and I are very comfortable stepping in and doing more and assuming the leader role. But I imagine there are folks in their life who are very uncomfortable with that position. Like they can do it, but either they think, "Oh, let me just let somebody else do it. I don't have to be in the spotlight," or they really don't think they have the skills to be a leader. And I think the beautiful thing about leadership is, in a lot of ways, it's mindset, it's attitude, it's willingness. It's not even about skill. Like we're going to talk about skill, I imagine, as we, deep dive on leadership. But the amazing thing about leadership is sometimes, for one reason or another, you just get selected to lead a team or lead in church or lead in,
And you don't feel ready. You're like,
oh my
wait.
gosh, no. Yeah.
You're like, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this. I think it's interesting because as you were talking and saying, well, Brooke, we might naturally feel like leaders. The I do feel like throughout my life, I've had experiences in my evidence box that have told me, okay, you are a leader. You were born to be a leader. And then I've found myself as I get put into situations where I have to lead, especially the growth, the stretch experiences where all of a sudden I do not feel like I'm qualified at all as a leader. And so I want to explore why this happens. What actually makes you a leader? What are the qualities and traits? How would you define it, Hayden? Like, what does it mean to be a leader?
So the past 5 years, I have been leading recruiting for Honeywell at Utah State. So every year I show up and select several HR interns that is going to be the future of our HR function. And to me, it's one of my favorite things that I do in my job. It's a passion project, right? It's not my day job, but It is something that I'm very, very passionate about and love doing. And similar dynamic, I think it's really hard as a recruiter to show up to a class of 30 students and represent 100,000 employee, $40 billion company in an hour and 15-minute info session. But that's really what being a leader is. You are the company. People don't leave companies, they leave leaders, they leave managers. As an entrepreneur, Brooke, I imagine when you work with different either partners or suppliers, really your relationship with the folks that you work with is more important than the actual companies that you're working with. You'll have selfish intentions, right, to either get something from them or partner with someone on something, but really the relationship or like working with the leader of whoever you're working with is super important. And so for me, really, I view, I'm going to use your favorite word, but really the leader is the steward of their team representing their relationship with either the company or the, startup entrepreneur or the experience for non-work related examples that the folks on that team experience. And so like whether it's a family, whether it's some sort of social club like in life, whether it's work, the leader really is responsible and accountable for being the steward of the experience of the folks that they're leading.
So, being a steward of the experience, that piece, there was a couple weeks ago, I was listening to some kind of video on LinkedIn, and it was this famous speaker. I'm going to have to go look it up. He does training, leadership training, team building things for companies. And he was talking about leadership and his definition. And he said something to the effect of, you don't get to decide how people experience you as a leader. You don't get to decide how people experience you as a leader. And this
Mm.
was mind blowing to me because we may sit here and say, my brand as a leader is X, Y, and Z. Like I could list off all these character traits and things that I believe make an incredible leader, which I think we should talk about. But all of that at the end of the day, if I'm working with you and you are experiencing me in a different way, the way that you experience working with me, being on my team, that is actually my leadership style. It's actually defined, according to this guy, is defined with how other people experience your leadership. So to me, that means what is one of the qualities of being an incredible leader? It's understanding how other people are experiencing your leadership. And
Yeah.
what does that require? It requires asking questions. It requires being humble to actually like be willing to get that feedback from somebody else, which can be so hard, so vulnerable, so like heart opening, right? So I just thought that was fascinating that, okay, regardless of my intention, how someone's actually experiencing me actually defines what kind of leader I am. Hey, my friend, I want to tell you about the Fearless Journal. The reason why Hayden and I created this journal was because if you're like us, you love listening to podcasts, you love listening to audiobooks, and you love the insights that you get from those things. But are you actually implementing them? That's my downfall. I have a million notes in my phone, a million Google Docs of different things, books that I've started, podcasts that I've listened to, and I don't have one single place to track my progress. That is the purpose of the Fearless Journal. You have a place to document the challenges, the things that you feel called to try out and do in your life, and a weekly template of how you can track that progress and improve. We love it. We know you're going to love it too. We want you to live the most fulfilling life, free of fear or imposter syndrome that's been holding you back. We hope you enjoy it. You can find it on Amazon today.
how I would add to that is I interview a lot of people and hire for roles, in the organization and the client group that I support. So I'm talking, I've interviewed hundreds of times in my experience. And a common interview question that is like, tell me about your leadership style, define your leadership style. And every time I've asked that question, I've always received an answer like, oh, it's this. I'm a servant leader, or I'm a player's coach, or you know, but just reflecting and hearing what you were just talking about is honestly probably the perfect answer is it depends, because we all have natural tendencies and have human nature, and we all have personalities. But in order to be a dynamic leader, you have to adjust to the role that you're in and to the team that reports to you. And so the
The situation is, it's so variable.
100%. And I see this, Honeywell is a very dynamic organization. So performance culture, and it's really common for folks. There's a lot of change, depending on your organization. Either folks are moving to other parts of the business, or they're getting promoted, or, every company has attrition as well. And so there's, there are many opportunities for you to interact either with a different manager or to have changes on your team. And we try and automate that process and operationalize that process as much as possible to help integrate the team as quickly as possible when there's change. But as a leader, you have to be willing to change. So Brooke, like when I go to campus now, it's a very different experience than 5 years ago. Just like we're experiencing a generational shift. So as you and I continue to grow in our careers, we're going to, our interns that we just onboarded last week or this week, if we really start talking about life and interests and personality, and even some of the words that they use, like the 6-7 thing and like Riz, like you and I never grew up, and hella, like hella, like you and I don't use that language on a normal basis. And so little things like that, now you and I are going to have to learn how to interact with a new generation that has different language, and they get motivated differently and they care about different things. And so leadership is something that's always evolving, which, to your point at the beginning, is why it is such a polarizing topic, because you can never
There's
just
not a
say,
right
this is my
way.
leadership style.
And there's not one right way. This makes me think of a story, probably one of my first real experiences in leadership was in my freshman year of playing college soccer in the armpit of Wyoming. So I came on as a freshman. I was recovering from a torn ACL. I had like a bionic leg, and is what it looked like. Um, so with the first week, it was like intense. We would do 3-a-days, and we would go through and have all these intense workouts. And at the end of this week, the team was supposed to choose a captain. And so somehow I got chosen as a freshman to be captain of the team. Now, I had been captain of other teams, soccer teams, so I felt comfortable, but there was this feeling because those older than me, in like sophomores, right? The people that they've been there for a while. I almost felt this tangible, like, I don't even know if I want this position because of the feeling that it's creating on the team. So
Hmm.
immediately my mind is like, okay, you have to start creating a culture. How, what does it mean to lead? How do you foster community? How do you get people to be inspired to want to do more? And the beginning of our season, Hayden, was horrible. We were losing every single game. We were losing every single game. There was issues with the coaching, the training, everything that you can possibly think of. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, how? How can I make a difference? How can I make an impact? What does it actually mean to lead this team? And what came to me was, and I didn't even think about it in this term, but basically what came to me, my idea was that I needed to sit down. I needed to write a letter to every single person on the team. There's probably, there's 11 starters and we had, let's say maybe there was 18, 19, 20 people on the team. So I sat down and I got 20 pieces of paper and I wrote every person's name at the top. And I wrote them a handwritten note, one page of why they were so important to the team. And I like the details that I went into, the qualities that I noticed in them, the interactions that I saw between the players. And I did that for a whole page for each player. So as we were getting on the bus going to our next game and everybody got off the bus for lunch, I put those notes in everybody's seat. Now, I wish that I had this epic story of like, we ended up winning every single game for the rest of the season. And I don't have any memories of that. But I do remember feeling a tangible difference because I think that they actually realized that I cared, that I genuinely cared about them, their experience on the team. I knew how I was feeling. It's devastating to be in a hard position where you're losing all the time and it's really hard and you're away from home and it's your first experience with college soccer. And so the empathy piece, like that changed the dynamics of our team. And so that was one of the first lessons. I don't even know how that came to me, right?
Mm.
But it I've tried to remember that piece. How can I implement? What does that look like now in the workplace?
Yeah. It's a terrific example. And one of the things that honestly I wasn't even thinking about with leadership that your story highlights is leadership is about being the steward of the team, caring about the individuals on your team, and leading the team. However, the leader does not have everything in their control. And that was a beautiful illustration of that. So, like, taking this to a company example, if I'm a leader and our organization is not growing, it's not doing well, and we need to lay people off or we need to make some difficult decisions, the leader is responsible for communicating negative things just like they're responsible for communicating positive things. And when I reflect on my time and my career so far, I have appreciated great leadership through negative more so than when things are great. When things are great, anyone can be a leader. If you're undefeated, any player on that team probably could be the captain. But do you know what? When you're losing every game and the stands are empty and no one cares, do you know, like, there's something beautiful about a captain with a C on their chest that says, you know what? We're still going to play with pride and we're going to do our best and we're going to have fun and make some memories, even if we lose by 40 points. That is, but you don't have control over that. You're not the coach. You don't have any say over if your star player breaks their leg. You know, like, you just are going through the season as best you can, helping make something better. That is something that's beautiful about leadership is at the end of the day, it's like making the trail better than you found it. You are trying to make that team better than when you got there because you were the leader.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we feel like we have to wait to be called into the position of leader
Mm.
to be a leader. like, okay, once I'm a manager or I have people under me or whatever else, last night before bed, thinking about this episode, how we were going to talk about leadership, I started thinking about my favorite leaders or people that have just inspired me. Can I tell you what I started reading
Yeah.
about Joan of Arc? So on my vision board, I had I found this image of probably some kind of rendering of Joan of Arc. But it's this woman, it's a young woman, she's clothed in like armor and she has her head bowed and has like light coming down on her. And when I found it, I was like, oh my goodness, I want this printed like big because I want to be like her. But the truth is that I haven't really heard all the details of what her story was like. So I started reading it last night, like the details. So let me give you a little background in case you don't know the details how I didn't. Basically, it was the 1400s and it's in France. So you can picture it's during the 100 Years' War and England has taken a bunch of French territory. So there's just a lot going on war-wise. The rightful king of this area, it's messy. And there's a French prince, I believe his name is Charles. He's supposed to be crowned the king, but he hasn't been crowned yet. There's a lot going on. So welcome Joan. She is just this teenage girl who lives in this small village. She's like a farm girl. She's nobody. She's not rich. She's not connected to anybody. She's not trained as a soldier. I'm just picturing, like, go and Google some French towns in the 1400s to see what it looks like. I'm just have this image of this rural random girl, right? And essentially what she starts to get impressions. Well, I like to call it like a divine revelation. She feels like she's being called by God, that she gets a message saying, you have the gifts and talents to help save France. You need to get Charles crowned. And so she has this like belief. So I want you to remember this piece because when I read that, I think this is a piece of leadership. There's like this belief that you can make an impact somewhere. So she has this belief that she can actually make an impact. So she goes through these steps. She has this divine, what she feels like a divine calling, a belief that she can make an impact. First, she has to go to a local military leader. And what she says is, I need to go see Charles, who's the prince. I need to go see Charles. I need to go see Charles. And at first, this military leader thinks that she's delusional. Like, who is this random teenage girl? So eventually, she convinces him, like, she is relentless in this belief that she can make a difference. So he is convinced because of her belief that he's going to escort her to go see Charles. So then she gets in front of the prince, and it seems like the history here is like a little bit, there's parts that turn into legend and whatever else. But what I got from it was when she actually gets to Charles, whatever her proposal is convincing enough that he doesn't throw her out, that he actually believes what she's saying too. So, um, then after she proposes this to Charles, she has to go through this intense, like this is a part of the hero's journey, right? This like refiner's fire where she has all of these religious leaders, political leaders that are basically saying like, is she crazy? Is she just a heretic? Like, is she safe? Can we trust her? This teenage girl go through all this questioning. Is she legitimate? And she passes all these tests and they make her a leader. And one of the things that I read, and like there's so many details, so you go and read this because this story is amazing. But one of the things is that she's given armor, she's given a banner, and she's given a role in the army. Now, some of the accounts that I read was about that although she had a sword, her intent was never to kill or like enforce these things. She said her greatest weapon was her banner
Hmm.
and what it represented and the message. And so, I mean, in the end, we know that she completely changes things. Like she inspires this whole army to go and fight to so that Charles can become crowned king, changes the trajectory of everything, and the ending of her life is sad. But what I learned in this whole thing was, what does it mean to be a leader? Can you be this nobody in a small rural town that just
Hmm.
has this feeling or this belief? I want to make a difference. I want to make a difference in the world, in my family, in my workplace, with the people that are around me. And you believe it to your core that nothing can stop you. So there's this belief and commitment, and she didn't try to force, but she just wanted to send her message out. So anyways, there's so much there, but it was so inspiring, Hayden. So inspiring.
Yeah. It When I think about leadership and being a leader, I really think the best metaphor is a blank canvas. Like, imagine you're sitting down, let's say your New Year's resolution is I want to paint more, or I want to create more, design and draw. I actually think we should probably all do that more. I haven't in a while. I do enjoy painting, Brooke. I'm not great at it. As a kid, I wasn't the best at staying in the lines. But, more abstract guy. But I think so far what we're highlighting is just the infinite possibilities leadership can look like and what it can feel like and the skill set required and who. There's an infinite possibility of who can lead and how. Very similar to a blank canvas. You could literally do anything with it. It's freeing. It's really quite
I
beautiful.
love
But
that.
uh, it's also infinite in value. And so at Honeywell, we have a lot of our HR metrics look at identifying great leaders and bad ones, right? Like we have like voice of the employee survey. We have all these talent metrics, attrition. Like, are you promoting, are folks that report to you, do they have good people leader metrics and are they moving to other bigger roles in the company? And obviously processes in place, right? If you have bad leaders and if processes in place, if you have great leaders, like what can they go do? How can we add more to their plate? But we're going through the NFL playoffs right now, Brooke, and just a quick example of the infinite value of leaders. The New England Patriots, they've won, I think they're tied for the most Super Bowls in the NFL. They're estimated to be valued at about $9 billion. And 2024, 2025, Belichick, who was the longtime coach, he was told to retire. And his successor was Jared Mayo, who was on Belichick's staff, and he became head coach. After one season, normally how NFL contracts work for head coaches, you sign like a 5-year deal and it's worth like $20 million and you get a certain amount every year, right? Jared
Okay.
was a first-time head coach. But the way the NFL contracts work is if you get fired, technically your contract for the most part, that's your severance because you signed an agreement. Both parties are committed to the next 5 years. Okay.
Okay.
So the
Wow.
Patriots fired him after 1 year. So they essentially paid his buyout of 4 years of work they essentially said, you know what? After 1 year, we were so confident in you. We signed you to 5 years. But after 1 year, we were so disappointed. We need to get someone in. So as a billionaire
Jeez.
owner, you have to think
Oh,
about not only is the head coach fired, all of the assistant coaches that head coach just hired, they're all fired too. they're making money while you're paying the new person to come in. So they bring in the new person, Mike Vrabel, who was a Patriot player, and then he was a Tennessee Titans coach. He comes and is the head coach. The Patriots this year, so last year they were 4-13. This year they're 14-3, and essentially like probably going to go to, like, they could go to the Super Bowl. And but that's the difference. 1 year difference of a team with essentially the same
Wow.
players, and your record flipped. And that, the billionaire owner, he said it was the hardest decision and the worst from a financial perspective. But now he's like so happy he did it because he got the right leader in place. And I just think it's cool to talk about this because we should be reflecting and working on leadership skills and putting ourselves in situations that require us to be leaders, because every situation in life, every experience needs us to lead in one capacity or the other, whether we have a C on our jersey, whether we're the manager of a team, whether we're some teenage girl in France and England's trying to take over the world. I just think whether, we're one of the coaches of a NFL franchise. So I just think that, honestly, I'm surprised we haven't talked about leadership already. But Brooke,
No.
I know you've been thinking about leadership a lot, and it was, your inspiration on why we talked about this mini series. Do you have any thoughts on like the big buckets of leadership? Like if we think about what leadership looks like, the skill sets of a leader, there's infinite amount, but what are your like top 3 or 4?
Yeah, I want to do a deep dive on each of these areas. I think there's a few things in my mind that make a really good leader, or that if you are a leader, you're going to experience and you need to develop those skill sets. So here are my thoughts.
Okay.
The first one is to be a leader and to be a good leader, you have to learn ownership. And not only ownership, but it's almost how to have difficult conversations. It's encompassed in what you're experiencing as a team. How do you take ownership of the situation and have hard conversations with your team, with yourself, vulnerable conversations? So that's number one.
I mean, like firing someone, it's not fun. I've done it, more times than I would have liked. But you have to lead through that, again, like the good times and the bad.
And I would say, even Hayden, as an entrepreneur, and the part that I'm in right now is I have to have honest conversations with my team where I'm like, I don't know. I don't know the
Yeah.
answer. I've literally never gone through this before. And so the pressure that comes from that, right? Like how staying vulnerable and having the difficult conversations when you don't have all the answers, you don't know the right choice.
I think the other thing on that one too is being a shield. Have you ever had a leader that exudes anxiety, exudes stress? So like their manager tells them something that makes them chaotic or stressful, and then they are that energy. That's a bad leader. A good leader needs to shield the pressure that's coming down and figure out action and a game plan in a calm, confident manner.
Oh, yes. We're gonna have to do a deep dive on that.
Okay?
The next piece is delegation.
Big.
Especially like through my lens right now, is I'm the bottleneck as the person that has built the business from the ground up. Now, as I have more people on my team, how do I delegate and allow other people to grow and shine? Like lifting lifting people up on climbing the ladder of success. How do I take people behind me, lift them up above me, but give them those experiences to grow? And the delicate balance between what needs to be done and allowing growth to happen. Like, it's so
Mm,
tricky.
yeah. And onboarding, right? It's one thing to delegate, but if you give no instruction or tools or processes or an operating system and just say, "Yep, go do this." And then you need to have realistic expectations. Like, if you didn't give them any instruction, could you have even done what you just asked your team to do? Is that fair? And this is one thing, Brooke, we're different on, just like leading these interns together. You are just the queen of onboarding. Like, your systems are so clear and you're like, wait, this doesn't fully make sense to me. Let me build this out more. And I'm more like, let's give them room to gallop, they'll figure it out. So I'm learning from you on that one, but another great one.
Yeah, I think we kind of talked about this other piece. I love that you say that though, because again, there's not one right way. There's not one right way. So what's the balance? But we talked about this in a little bit in this episode, relationship building. Um, what I have found is, especially with my deep desire to connect with people, how do you build relationships with your team, deep relationships with your team? But also, where's the boundary between like personal and professional? If you're working with friends or, and there's so many conflicting things. Some people say we're family. We're family, and that's how we're going to treat it. And then you hear some people that are like, nope, don't treat it like family because you're not family. You have to run a business. And what happens when you have to, you know, fire somebody or whatever else? So, what is that line of developing deep relationships? What does it look like? We got a deep dive on that one.
Okay.
And then the last one I would say is the characteristics of a leader. I don't know, maybe you can help me define this a little bit better, but you alluded to like servant leadership or inspiring people. Like, I don't know how to really capture this piece.
This is like your war general. So, like, you give the motivational speech, you influence, you bring the most out of an unfortunate situation or like a team that is misunderstood and not capitalizing on the talent that they could be. An example of this is growing up playing football. I played on the line, like offensive and defensive line, for a lot of my football career. And on offensive line, so the guys that block for all of the fast, hoity-toity prima donnas on offense that score touchdowns, the men that are blocking the defensive linemen, our symbol was a fist. Because on the offensive line, there's 5 people, just like 5 fingers, and individually we're all strong. But what would you rather fight, 5 individual fingers or 1 fist? Together, we're strong. And if we have a unified approach and are solid and together, we are unbreakable, just like a fist. And that this one, we should end with this one, Brooke, because I feel like this will turn into like a motivational speech. But I
Okay.
also think on like the war general component, just growth mindset. Like, there's going to be times your team disappoints you, just like you and I. I'm sure we've been at this for over a year now, and on both sides, we've disappointed each other as we navigate this journey. On both sides, we take turns passing the baton on who's leading, who's following, and how we support each other. And we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep letting each other down and disappointing each other. But we understand the bigger picture. And one disappointment isn't going to crack the fist.
So I the fist piece, the image that I get from that and being stronger together. And when you have like the 5 fingers up like this and I see the individuals, I think in this episode, when we deep dive on that episode, talking about how there are innate values or things that leaders can do, but how do you do that with your personality,
Yeah.
your flavor? and how that makes it powerful, even with the individuals, how that can make it so much more powerful. So I love that imagery.
Okay, so
We
to
have a
sum
lot of good
up,
things.
yeah, we do. So you said four things. So one, just to summarize, one is you're the owner. You own whether it's good news, bad news, you're the owner, difficult conversations, you're the shield for your team. That's one. Two, delegation. Super hard, especially at the beginning, telling other people what to do, onboarding folks, building a system so that because you can't do everything yourself. So what to let go of, what to supervise and spend more of your time and energy on. So two, delegation. Three, relationship building. This one's huge because you have to build relationships with your team. They have to build relationships with you. But the other thing, Brooke, we're going to have to call out in big companies, as the leader, you're also responsible for your team building relationships with your boss and other people around the company. So managing visibility to your team and folks lower in the organization and protecting the time of the bigger leader. So you're like round one of, is this person ready to present to the big leader yet? No, so let me give feedback and get them ready and manage that visibility. So three, relationship building, and four, like the war general, just like the motivator, the pre-game speech, making the most out of a team, growth mindset, servant leadership, but really this idea of you're the influential maximizer. Okay, that's great. I don't think I've ever heard leadership defined in those four ways. So I think we got some really unique content coming up.
It's going to be great. Stay tuned. We'll catch you guys next time. For now, that's the pod.